Hello everyone and welcome back to Scandinavian Design 101. I'm Sanna.
I'm Andreas and we are two Swedes and we love design. And in this video we're going to talk about the Danish architect Hans J. Wegener, and more specifically the story behind his iconic wishbone chair. And to be honest, we're no big fans of this chair. I guess we are tired of it. Yeah. The wishbone chair is extremely popular though, and it can be seen in almost every interior magazine in the world. I mean, you see it everywhere. And it's definitely not a bad chair, but personally we prefer other models by Wegener. With that said, let's take the story from the beginning.
Let's.
Yeah.
The wishbone chair was launched by Carl Hansen in 1950 and has been in production ever since. That's a long time. But we will start the story long before this. For hundreds of years, Chinese chairs has inspired European furniture makers. In the 18th century, castles and pavilions were built all over Europe inspired by Chinese architecture. When modernism had its breakthrough in the early 20th century, Chinese craftsmanship continued to inspire cabinet makers and designers, not least in Denmark. The philosophy of Kåre Klint, the father of modern Danish design, influenced most Danish furniture designers. According to him, traditional furniture models should be studied and elaborated into modern versions. In the 1930s, Chinese-inspired furniture could be seen at the annual Copenhagen Cabinet Makers Guild's exhibition, and several designers made their own interpretations. One example is Arne Jacobsen, who designed a Chinese-inspired chair in 1934 to be used in the restaurant at the Bellevue complex just north of Copenhagen. This chair was made from steam-bent beech.
Yeah.
Sounds like the beach. But by the manufacturer Fritz Hansen. It was simple and adapted for industrial production, yet highly inspired by Chinese predecessors.
Ja.
That means yes.
Yes. And while studying at the School of Arts and Crafts in Copenhagen, like everyone else, it seems, in the late 30s, Wegener got fascinated by a Chinese chair found in the school's collection of historical furniture. And the chair was produced around 1800 and had a characteristic yoke-shaped top rail.
Not egg yolk.
No, more yoke. Yeah. Another interesting detail was the S-shaped back support that followed the human body perfectly. In 1944, Wegener would come to design his own modernized version of this chair for the cabinet maker Johannes Hansen. And the version by Wegener had a similar backrest as the predecessor, but the legs, as you can see, were much lighter and modern looking.
Wegener was also experimenting with another type of Chinese chairs. In 1943, he saw a chair pictured in the book Furniture Types, written by the architect Ole Wanscher. The chair produced in China in the 18th century had a rounded, organic-looking backrest. The legs, on the other hand, were strictly geometric. Drawn to organic modernism, Wegener soon started sketching on an organic Chinese chair with a rounded top rail. At the time, he had been commissioned by Fritz Hansen to design a chair with a rounded top rail, and the chair in the book by Wanscher turned out to be a great inspiration for the project. At the time, Fritz Hansen was producing a bentwood cafe chair called the Dan chair. It was nothing but a copy of a Tonette chair, and it required long pieces of beech wood to produce. A new chair was required, and Wegener was chosen for the task. Wegener worked simultaneously. That's a difficult
Yeah, every time.
My mouth can't bend that way.
No.
Something with the time. I don't
sorry, we're Swedes, so yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
He worked simultaneously on 4 different chairs. All 4 were clearly inspired by the Chinese chair pictured in Wanscher's book, with a curved top rail and an S-shaped back support. Surprisingly, they were not adapted to the specifications given by Fritz Hansen. which is bad.
Yeah, it's strange when you
Yeah.
have a commission that.
Instead of making a simple cafe chair adapted for industrial production, these chairs were exclusive and rather conservative looking. It's no surprise that the functionalist Börje Mogensen mocked the chairs by saying, "Antique dealers must be enthusiastic."
Yeah, that's a kind thing to say.
Kind of bitchy.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
The Chinese chair number 1 was exhibited at the Cabinet Makers exhibition and was put into production in 1944 by Fritz Hansen, given the model number FH4283. It was a traditional looking chair made from cherry wood. And even though it was put into production, Wegener himself wasn't fully satisfied. It looked a bit too traditional and was too complicated to produce. In other prototypes, Wegener experimented with stretchers between the legs, as well as letting the armrests sit on the front legs without extra support. And this can be seen in the Chinese chairs number 2 and 3. And these two prototypes were never put into production, but were later developed into the legendary round chair, often simply called the chair. In 1945, the simpler, more geometric-looking Chinese chair number 4 was put into production by Fritz Hansen, given the model number FH1783. And it was a somewhat more Danish-looking chair with flat stretchers between the legs and a seat made from seagrass. And it was also completely free of all ornamentation. The FH4283 is still in production by Fritz Hansen. That's the first chair. And made from cherry, the retail price is astonishing $11,700.
Wow.
And that's extremely expensive for
for
one
one
chair.
chair.
And if you want like 4 of them, it's
Unreasonable.
unreasonable. Yeah.
It's not that good looking.
No.
Is cherry very expensive then?
No.
Uh-huh.
I think it's just quite complicated to produce. And I think it's the only all solid wood chair produced by Fritz Hansen.
Oh.
Normally they use plywood or partly produce them in tubular steel or something. So it's a very exclusive chair to be produced by Fritz Hansen. And then the other chair, the chair number 4, it's nowadays produced by PP Möbler with a retail price of about $5,000, depending on upholstery and type of wood.
Yeah, that's also very expensive.
That's expensive too.
And now to the wishbone chair. In 1948, Wegener was commissioned by the furniture manufacturer Carl Hansen and Son to design 4 different chairs suitable for serial production. One of them was supposed to be similar to the China chair number 1, and Wegener accepted the task, even though he understood that the China chair wasn't a perfect inspiration for this particular project.
No.
It just wasn't suitable for industrial mass production, and it was far too bulky to use as a dining chair around a table.
Yeah, and therefore, in contrast to the specifications given by Carl Hansen again, he decided to design a completely new chair. And the result was the CH24, or the wishbone chair, launched in 1950. And in Danish and also in Swedish, it's simply called the Y-chair.
The letter Y.
Yeah, the Y-stolen. And it was, I think that's because we don't have this tradition in Scandinavia with wishbones.
No.
We haven't.
We don't know how they look like.
No, we don't know.
We don't know what they are.
But now we know that birds have them and some dinosaurs had them.
Yeah, and you like break them. Something with...
Yeah, you can
I've seen that
wish
on
something.
America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yes,
that was fun.
but we don't know that in Scandinavia. So that's, we call it Y-stolen. Yeah.
Simple.
And it was definitely based on the Chinese chairs, but differed a lot from its predecessors. Wegener let the rear legs bend forward to support the backrest, and by doing so, the chair became much less bulky and easy to place around the table. In this sketch, you can see here by Wegener, you can see the transformation from China chair to wishbone chair. And another difference is that the back support was only bent in 2 directions, not in 3 as in the China chair. And this made the wishbone chair easier and perhaps cheaper to produce. And obviously, the most characteristic feature is the Y-shaped back support. And this was actually not just a design feature. The sitter's spine would fit better, making the chair more comfortable. Otherwise, you will almost hurt your back if you lean backwards. So, yeah.
Okay.
The wishbone chair is a slim and lightweight chair, and to make it sturdy, Wegener decided to give it outward sloping legs. The result of all this was indeed a unique looking chair. It's timeless and looks just as modern today as it did 72 years ago.
Yeah, it does actually.
Yeah. But Holger Hansen, the owner of Carl Hansen, was actually quite displeased at first. He didn't like the look of it. It reminded him of garden furniture by some reason, yeah. And a large part of the production had to be made by external factories, and that's a bad thing. Of course, it's expensive. Carl Hansen lacked the machinery to turn the back legs and steam bend the backrest, and that's 2 important parts of the chair, of course. More than 100 steps are required to manufacture each chair, and most of them are carried out by hand, so it's not a very industrial chair.
No.
Despite these initial obstacles, the wishbone chair became a huge success, and today it's one of Wegener's absolute most popular chairs.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
The wishbone chair has been in production by Carl Hansen ever since and has become a given part of Danish design history. Retail price today is between $890 and $1,280 depending on the type of wood used, of course.
Yeah.
It's a popular chair on the secondhand market as well, and it's often sold for around $500 at auction. So you should always purchase it secondhand. If you can.
Yeah, you should. And it's they get this wonderful patina, this old oak versions.
But you said you don't like them.
No, but if you decide to buy a wishbone chair, buy secondhand.
That is true.
Do not buy a new wishbone chair. Buy some of the other wonderful chairs by Wegener instead. And this was our introduction to the wishbone chair and also a bit about the Chinese chairs. Yeah. If you like this introduction,
please click thumbs up and subscribe.
Yeah, and follow us on Instagram. We are called Scandinavian Design 101.
Yes, thank you for watching.
Thank you.